Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Jenny, the LDS Mission Coach, and you are listening to the LDS Mission Podcast, episode number 36, Bully Proof Your Mission with Joey Mascio. I'm Jenny, the LDS Mission Coach, and whether you are preparing to serve a mission, currently serving, a returned missionary, or a missionary mama like me, I created this podcast just for you. Are you searching for epic confidence, ready to love yourself and to learn the how of doing hard things? Then let's go. I will help you step powerfully into your potential and never question your purpose again. It's time to embrace yourself, embrace your mission, embrace your life, and embrace what's next. Hey everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I am super excited today to share with you a conversation that I had with one of my friends, Joey Mascio. He is a certified life coach like me. He's also been through the advanced faith-based coaching with Jody Moore like I have been. And he works with teens and young adults and has tons of experience in the area of bullying. And I thought that it would be super helpful to have him on the podcast so that we could talk through some of what bullying looks like, what it has looked like on the mission, what it might look like on the mission, and some of the things that we can do to equip ourselves or our missionaries to handle bullying. I know it's kind of a hard thing to realize that it actually does happen on the mission from time to time. I've seen countless Facebook posts, moms on Facebook talking about how their son or daughter has been bullied. I'm so excited that Joey came on the podcast, and I hope you guys find this conversation that he and I have super useful. And without further ado, here is my conversation with Joey Mascio. Hey, Joey, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me here. I'm so excited.
Yeah. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's snowing.
Oh,
right?
It's snowing in Utah?
Yeah, it's just south of Provo, and it's snowing. And so I'm from Southern California, and I moved up here thinking there'd be snow all the time during the winter months. And people were like, no, that's not how it is. And I was seeing grass for the past couple of weeks. I'm like, this is not right. This is not why I moved up here. I want snow.
Oh, you want snow?
I want snow. I'm a snowboarder who was born and raised in Orange County, California. Like,
okay.
So I love snow.
Not me. I'm like, do you know? Okay. So we're recording this on Groundhog's Day.
Yes.
Do you know whether the groundhog saw his shadow or not?
I have no idea. I know in Groundhog's Day, the movie, what happens there, but I don't know what happened.
It was the first thing my daughter asked Alexa this morning was, did the groundhog see his shadow? And yes, he did, which means 6 more weeks of winter.
What does that even mean? 6 more weeks of winter these days?
Maybe you'll get more snow is maybe what it means.
Okay. Then yes, thank you, groundhogs, for being a coward.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Well, I just want to tell all of our listeners, I'm so excited to have Joey Mascio on the podcast with us today. He's a good friend of mine and fellow coach. And today we're going to talk about bullying, because I do get a lot of Facebook messages about bullying. I'm seeing a lot of stuff about bullying on the mission. And Joey has an amazing background. He has an amazing program for teens and young adults. And he actually has some personal experience with bullying. And so why don't you, Joey, just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, your family, all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, of course. So let's see. I'm, like you said, a life coach. I've been a life coach for 3 years. I specifically work with high school and college students on lots of different things, bullying being one of the things. Before I was a life coach, I was a middle school teacher and a high school teacher for 7 years. And then before that, I was an actor, where I performed on hundreds of stages across California in front of thousands and thousands of people. And my biggest claim to fame is being the only actor in Disneyland history to have played both Darth Maul and the Mad Hatter.
Okay, nice.
I'm pretty versatile. That's right.
I knew you had an acting background. You know, my claim to acting fame is I was the lead in my high school musical.
Hey, what was it?
It's The Fantastics.
Okay. I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Nice.
one of the longest running shows on Broadway. It's kind of a lesser known show, but a good one.
Nice. Oh, awesome. Oh, a theater person. Lovely.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I do that. And then I'm very animated. So you guys will hear me get very excited about things as we're talking about it. But I'm married. Me and my wife been married for 8 years now. And we have 4 kids.
I love that. So I listened to all of your podcasts on bullying, and Joey has an amazing podcast, Secrets for an Awesome Life. So all of you guys totally go check that out. And in that podcast, you've kind of shared some personal things about your own background with bullying. And so I'd love for you to just kind of fill us in a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. So, you can't see me. There's probably a picture maybe attached to this podcast somewhere, but I'm incredibly pasty white. My head's pretty large and has always been, and I'm shorter for my age, I'm just shorter, and I'm scrawny, right? So it's like prime pickings for bullying, just because of the difference, between me and maybe somebody else. And really, there's not that big of a difference between all of us, but during elementary school, middle school, and even throughout high school and college, our brains are kind of focused and trained to notice what's different. And then some people make it the topic of conversation. And then some people make it a topic of conversation against your will and at your expense, which is where we get into the territory of bullying. So for me, I mean, in elementary school, I was called Casper. In middle school, I had a very memorable event that I share on my podcast. But when I was called Moonhead, do you want me to go into that story?
Sure. Yeah.
So one day I was walking home, and I was a 7th grader, and there was a bunch of 8th graders by the bathrooms that you have to pass on your way off campus. And one of them looked at me and was like, "Hey, look at this kid. His head is huge." And then his buddy's like, "Yeah, look at that. Oh my goodness, man. Like, how does he stand up straight?" And then somebody made a connection to a McDonald's commercial that was popular at the time of Mac Tonight. Now, Mac Tonight is a guy with a crescent moon for a head, and he's playing the piano, singing about how you should have a Big Mac tonight, And but they made that connection that, hey, he's got a pointy chin and a big head, so dude, he looks like the guy from that commercial. Yeah, Moonhead. Oh, he's Moonhead. And they christened me with the name Moonhead. And like in that first day, I like put my head down and got out of there as soon as possible. My heart was beating, my stomach was all in a knot. I'm like, what just happened? Right. And I just like left without saying a word. And the days went on, and I had to pass them every day. And they would be like, "Oh, it's Moonhead. What's up?" And I would just look down and keep walking. And it got to the point where I hated leaving school, which no kid should ever hate leaving school. But
yeah.
Like, man, yeah, right. It's the best part of the day.
It's the best part of the day.
So I was like, oh my goodness, these bullies, and I can't avoid them because they're exactly where I need to go. And it was super annoying. I can picture them now, exactly what they look like. Until one day I was walking, and before they saw me, I heard one of them turn to one of their buddies and go, "Shut up, Twig." And I was like, yeah, that guy is like sickly skinny. Like he's really skinny. And you know what? The other one's kind of fat. And the one who like makes fun of me the most, he's really hairy for a 13-year-old. And I had several realizations all at once. We are all awkward. It's kind of the nature of our age, right? So everybody looks different. These kids communicate by pointing out each other's differences and other people's differences. So them calling me Moonhead actually has less to do about me than it has to do about them. And also, I'm still awesome. Like, I always believed I was awesome, but when people would bully me, I'd be like, "Oh, I guess I'm less awesome." But then I was like, wait, like they think they're awesome. They think they're top of the school, and they all look how they look like. And I'm like, why can't I think that as well, despite what they are saying? So I'm like, I'm awesome. And yeah, my head is big, and I'm still awesome. So the next day when they call me Moonhead, I responded. I was like, "What's up, guys?" And it kind of threw them off a little bit, and I just got into this habit when they were like, "It's Moonhead." I'm like, "Hey, what's up? You guys want a Big Mac? I'll get you one," and like giving them high fives. And it turned into like a little pet name that they had for me. And eventually, like they stopped calling me it. That doesn't always happen. I think like if they would see me later in the year, they might go, "Oh, it's Moonhead. What's up?" But like from that day, I was never bullied again by them, but they kept calling me Moonhead. And I didn't feel bullied because of a change in my mind and in my perspective, not in a change in their actions. Their actions stayed the same, but because my brain changed on how I viewed them and viewed myself, the bullying stopped.
That's right. And that's what we teach as coaches, right? Is like our thoughts create our feelings, which drive our actions. And if we're solid in how we think about ourselves and feel about ourselves, then we just see their behavior differently and it doesn't have as big of effect on us.
Yep.
I love that so much. Did you serve a mission for our church?
I did. Yes. I served in Edmonton, Alberta in Canada.
Okay. It's cold up there.
Oh, super cold. -50 was the coldest I was in, and that's Celsius. So it was like -60 Fahrenheit.
Wow. Wow. Did you see any bullying on the mission that you recall?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about that.
So I'll tell you one that's not my example, but one. I was a zone leader, and there was a companionship where one was more of an athletic dude and the other one was more what people might call a nerd, right? He loved playing Dungeons and Dragons, and they were very, very opposite. And we were far, far away from the mission home, like 7 hours north of the mission home, because that mission was the second largest geographical mission in the world at that point. I think it still is. And it was a large area. So I'm way up in Grand Prairie, up in Canada, and zone leader over these like 12 missionaries that are up there. And transfers came, and the athletic missionary assumed that he was going to get transferred away from this guy. There were one of them, and he was very excited. He's like, I told president, like, I don't like him. We don't get along. So I'm sure we're going to get separated, and they did not.
Okay.
And this missionary was like furious, and he was mad about it. And so I know he didn't like treat the other missionary very well. Right. And so one time, and they had a strained relationship, and he would always refer to him in derogatory terms and whatnot. And the relationship was very strained. And then one day we're playing basketball with a couple of young adult investigators, right? And it was them two, me and my companion, who was even shorter than I was. And this really big athletic missionary, and then the other missionary, his companion. And they were on opposite teams, and they were playing, half court basketball. It's totally in the rules. We're allowed to do that. But they were guarding each other, and they were guarding each other really roughly, and it got rougher and rougher, and it got like into a fight. And I looked over, and what was happening was the athletic missionary was taking his aggression out on his companion by guarding him super close and being all up in his business. And the other missionary kind of like pushed him off of him. And then the athletic missionary would, like, I saw it in his face. He's like, this is my opportunity. And so he walks up to him. He takes his right hand. No, he takes his left hand and does a little wave, like way all over here on the left. And his companion looked over, and then he took his right hand and punched him across the face when he wasn't looking.
Oh my gosh.
Straight up across the face. And I remember my companion, the other zone leader, was like, hey, and screamed as loud as a 4'2" guy could, right? He's like, hey, wow. We separate them, get the mission president on the phone. We were like on like a permanent like exchanges for the next couple of days as they figured out what. And so the athletic missionary got transferred to like the Great White North with a different missionary in like that area. And he was like so happy, right? He was just like, look, I got myself transferred, this is, but I will never forget. I went into the room with his companion. Yeah. Because we separated them. I sat down, and he was bawling, and he was crying, and he's like, I've tried everything. I've tried to get along with him. He just hates me, and I'm worthless. And he had a bunch of labels for himself because of that. And I wish I had the coaching tools now or then that I have now. Right. I had my own, like inside, like I have already become bully proof myself, but I didn't know how to communicate it to him. But he was making it all mean something about himself. Being who he was, according to this other missionary, was not as good as being like the athletic missionary. And he was believing that who I am is not as good, is worth less than other people. And all because of this other missionary felt like being a jerk, right? And was having his own issues and was doing his own stuff. It didn't mean anything about his companion, but his companion was making it mean something about him. And I wish I could have helped him, coached him out of that.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I love that you brought up on your podcast is kind of how bullying, whether it's on the mission or in middle school or high school or in college or wherever it's happening, that the fight against bullying is kind of brought up in three fronts. Like we talk about it in three different ways. Can you explain that? And maybe we can kind of connect that to what was happening in that moment. Like how would we have solved that with these three fronts that you talk about?
Yeah. So the main two fronts that the media and the education system focus on are front number one, stop the bully, right? Or change the bully. If we can get bullies to stop being bullies, then that would solve a lot of problems. And it totally makes sense. Let's get them to stop. The problem with that front is that most people, when they're in like an anti-bullying seminar or whatnot, is that the kids who need to be there aren't paying attention, or the kids who like need to like listen to it aren't paying attention. And if they are paying attention, they generally don't think it applies to them.
Right.
Because it's usually big caricatures that we're showing, right? Like in church videos, it does it too. And other videos, like, oh, look at this. Usually some like thick-necked redhead kid who's like bullying somebody or whatever. And people look at that and go, yeah, that's not me. You know, like I would never do that. And then that afternoon could go and do something that is bullying another kid. And so some kids are like, oh yeah, that's kind of me. But, and then if they're able to change, great. That's wonderful. Let's keep fighting on that front, right? Because some people will recognize themselves in those messages. The second front is inspire a bystander. And I know that there's some celebrities doing this for a while ago, or I don't know if they still are. I forgot what their slogan was, but it was like, stand up, right? It's like, make a change. If you see somebody being bullied, go in and say something. And studies show that if somebody says something, the bullying will stop. Right. Which is great. I love that. Let's keep fighting that front. The problem with that front, though, is that somebody who is a target of bullying is going to need somebody around them to A, be there, and B, recognize that the kid feels like they're being bullied. Sometimes you can't always tell, right? Everybody's joking in good fun and all the other stuff, but the kid is like, oh, I'm dying inside, right? Other times when it's very caricaturistic, it's easy to, hey guys, stop calling him names. Hey, back off. What's wrong with you? And the people back away because, somebody's going to stand up for him, whatever. But it won't work when you're not there.
Right.
If that guy gets cornered and then he's being bullied, right? They say, well, great. Nobody's here to save me. Again, keep fighting that front. I love the idea of people standing up for others. Love it. So the third front is the one that me and you kind of advocate for,
right?
Which is to strengthen the target, right? Is to become bully proof. Now, it's possible to become bully proof. I've done it. Kids have still bullied me, even my middle school students. I was in the discipline office as a teacher in there, and the kids who came in there were in very bad moods, right? And were just shooting down any leadership they could find or any adult there. And I had kids personally attack me, the size of my head, my skin color, my height, the way I talk, everything, right? And I'm glad I was just bully proof because it never got to me, right? And when it started to get to me, I was able to do my self-coaching and be like, oh, wait a minute. This has more to do with them than it has to do with me. So those are kind of those three fronts.
I love that. So if we were to describe like maybe what are the main components, and then we're going to dive a little deeper into this, but what would be maybe the components that you would need to strengthen yourself to consider yourself to be bully proof, do you think?
Yeah. For me, the number one thing to focus on first is love yourself for everything that you are. A lot of times when people make fun of things about us, whether it's how we look, which is the main thing, because it's the first thing people see, whether it's what we like, oh, you like that, you like K-pop, or you like, anime, or you like sports. I've seen people get bullied for liking sports, which you're like, that's atypical, but whatever you like, right? Love it. You are who you are. And there may be things about yourself that you would like to change, and you're welcome to change them. But before you can even change them, whether it's like your weight or your strength or whatever, before you can change them, you have to still love yourself for who you are. So I just accept yourself for everything that you are. For me, it was like, yeah, my head is the way it's shaped, right? And it's skinnier and larger than most other people's. And that's okay. It doesn't mean anything about me, which is the second step. So once you can start loving yourself, you know what? I accept myself for my weight, for my speech impediment. I coached a team with a stutter one time, and I said, you don't need to change at all. And you don't have to talk to anybody that you don't want to talk to, right? Because he was feeling like people would stutter him or bully him and try to get him to stutter by responding. And I was like, those people do not need to hear your voice. And you do not need to grant them that. You can just smile and just shrug, and just, sorry, like, you don't get to hear from me, that's just how I choose to live my life. Like, you're welcome to love but that's only if you love yourself. And he was like, oh, I have a stutter, and that means that I'm less than. You're not less than. You're not less than anybody. And so it's, first off, that step number one is believing that. Secondly is when we feel affected emotionally by the words or actions of others, it's because we are making it mean something about us. You need to remind yourself, you've already decided to love yourself for everything that you are and accept yourself for everything that you are, even the things you want to change, right? Yeah. Like I'm going to change that one day. I'm going to motivate myself and either get more fit or stop doing these things or start doing these things. That's totally fine. But I'm also fine with who I am right now. And I recognize that I can change if I want to. And my plan is to, right? But you've already decided to love yourself, which means that when somebody starts making fun of you, then you can go, wait a minute, this doesn't have to do with me. I'm not any less awesome. This has to do with them and who they are. They are someone who likes to point out other people's differences and for whatever reason. And when I would coach teens, they'd always be like, they're jerks. They're emotionally scarred. They're this, they're that. They're going to end up living in a van down by the river, flipping burgers, right? And they use that as a way to feel better about themselves. I'm like, we don't even need to do any of that. It's not like, let's bring them down so we can lift ourselves up, because we don't know that about them. And that generally doesn't bring the best feelings. It brings more animosity or anger in there. And I just love to go, I'm just going to accept them for who they are. And that's step number 3. I'm going to accept them for who they are. They don't need to change. I coached one kid, counseled one kid in the discipline office. He was majorly bullying a girl. And I think I shared this on one of my podcast episodes. She had a cleft palate. He was essentially telling his friends, she's your girlfriend. Ew, no, she's your girlfriend. Ew, no. But in his mind, he was not being a bully. He also wasn't emotionally scarred. It wasn't like he was something. I'm not even credentialed to determine whether he's emotionally scarred. In that moment, he just wanted to make people laugh. And that was all he was going for, was to make people laugh. And for jokes is kind of I was just joking. It was just want to make people laugh. And I was able to show him how it was affecting her. And he was like, and look down at the floor and be like, I didn't realize this. Not everybody's doing it because they're hurt. Some people do. Some people don't. Some people just don't know how to be funny, or don't know how to be funny without bringing somebody else down. But once you do step 3 and accept them for who they are, you don't have to change them. They don't need to stop saying what they're saying. They don't need to stop doing what they're doing. Right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, what I was going to say about that is what we both teach is their emotions drive their actions, which come from their thoughts. And we can even let them keep their thoughts. And those really don't have to affect us. What I tell my kids is if someone is like, oh, this kid said something about me at school today, what I say to them is what does that tell us about them?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, maybe they had a bad day. Maybe they thought that was funny. Maybe, maybe they were whatever. And then I always say, well, what does that tell us about you? And they're always a little confused. They're like, well, I don't know. What did that? And I'm like, nothing. That person's behavior tells us nothing about you ever.
Yeah. I love that. That's well put. And one caveat about accepting them for who they are, people always want to bring this up. Yeah, but what if he's like physically hurting me or touching my stuff or something like that? And I'm like, hey, by doing these 3 steps, you are in a better place to be like, oh man, it looks like this kid needs to know not to put other people's backpacks in the trash can, right? Or not to come up and he doesn't get to just punch anybody he wants, push me aside. So I'm either going to say something to him or I'm going to go get somebody to help him, because the way he's acting right now isn't socially acceptable for this area, right? And so, and for me, it frees me up, and it frees the teens I work with up too, to go get help. Because a lot of people think, there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong here. And I don't want to go up and say something about it and be a snitch or make a deal of it. But even if somebody's bullying you physically, right, or touching your stuff or whatever, for me, the thought that he's not a bully, and I don't even really believe in the term bully. I don't think it helps us at all, right? Because it puts us in the victim mode. But for me, thinking, yeah, nothing's gone wrong here. This is how teenagers or young adults, this is how humans sometimes interact with each other. And it's all part of the process, and it can be changed. And this person needs to learn not to do this. And by doing that, you can set up boundaries for yourself and get other people to go talk to that person and go, hey, look, you're putting somebody's backpack in. That's not okay here at this school. The rules that we have here, keep your hands to yourself, right? You're breaking some of the social norms here, and you shouldn't be doing that. Again, it has nothing to do with you. And when it has nothing to do with you, you're free to go get that person help. And that's how I love to look at it.
Yeah. And I loved when you talk about that on one of your podcasts about, was it Martin Buber, who talks about the I, it versus the I, you. And that kind of plays into what you were just talking about, whether we identify as a bully or a victim, and the I, it, I, you. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. So the reason why I don't like the term bully is because it makes them an it. Now, the way that this whole concept goes is that we have relationships with people in our life. And sometimes we view them as an I, meaning I'm a person, but you're an it. And so it's called an I, it. I'm going to use you to get something in my life. And whatever it is, maybe it's in some relationships, I'm just using this person for physical intimacy, or I'm using my parents for money, right? Like that's all there. And when we view relationships as I, it, it's not really a relationship, and it can become strained, and we start to show up as people that we don't want to be, right?
Right.
So he encourages to set up an I, you. I'm a person and you're a person. Right. And it helps us to stop looking at other people as what can we get from them, but they're humans just like we are, and we should build a connection with them. And that is going to help the whole kind of human family. Right. So the thing is, a bully is very often looking at a target as an it. Like the kid who's making fun of the girl with the cleft palate scar, right? Is that, I need to make a joke right now. I need to make people laugh. She's my it. She's the butt of the joke. Right? She's the it. Oh, this works very effectively for me, because look at how many people are laughing, and the dopamine hit I'm getting. This is working very well for me. Right. So that's how he kind of approaches it. Right. And so whenever I talk with somebody who's doing that, I love to point that out. And, hey, look, they're a person and all that. But when we start calling a bully, then we're creating the same type of I-it relationship. I'm a human and they're a bully. They're an it. And sometimes the it is benefiting us, or we're using them to feel less than, or to feel like a victim, or to feel like we're not in control.
Yeah.
And it kind of serves us in a way. And if your brain's like, what do you mean it serves? I'm not doing, what are you talking about? A part of our brain though, and I know, because that was me, right? It's a lot easier. It's more comfortable to walk away and not deal with it. Well, if they're a bully, I can't do anything about it. And that's easier for my brain to handle.
Totally. Instead of holding that duality of like, oh, wait, they're a human with human emotions as well. That's a harder duality for our brains to kind of manage.
Yeah. So for me, labeling somebody a bully is just like labeling them an it. It's kind of what they're doing to you, possibly, right? Doing it back to them now. It's like you're viewing them as an it. They're viewing you as an it. That's why we feel stuck. But if it's they're a human, right? And maybe they're a human that I don't want to be around. So I'm not going to be around them, you know, or maybe they're a human who needs help, right? In this, or maybe they're a human who just needs somebody to understand them, right? Or maybe they're a human that's a lost cause, right? Like, or someone who is going to figure things out maybe much later in life. I still got to set up my boundaries against, that other human to protect myself from them. You're still able to do that.
Yeah. The thing that comes up for me when we're talking about this is when on the mission, I see this quite a lot actually, is like you're the trainer and then you've got a trainee. And so your trainee is the it. It's like, what can we make them do? How can we make them behave? What can we teach them? Instead of, and this isn't always the case, right? But I've seen it where instead of saying, oh no, they're a human, they're having human emotions and really meeting them. I've also seen it the opposite way. Instead of someone like someone in an under position looking at like an AP as an it, like they're the bad guy. They just enforce the rules. They're not a human. And so, we get this bad mouthing about the AP or about the zone leader instead of treating them like or even just thinking about them as a human with their own set of backgrounds, with their own set of thoughts and their own set of emotions.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of goes both ways, right? From the top down or from the bottom up is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah. And it's a lot easier to view an us versus them mentality when it's an I-it relationship. And I saw that happen on my mission as well. A district leader who was training a new missionary. Oh, what's up, Greenie? Right. And really, like, it wasn't an endearing way that some people did it, but it was like, oh, Greenie. And he pulled a prank on him. And you probably know a lot about pranks, but he hid a bed. So there was just one bed in the room. So yeah, we share this bed. It's just kind of what, we do. And the new missionary was like, what? Like, that's not, so he slept on the couch and the other guy thought it was hilarious, and he's like, and so like after the first night, he said, okay, I actually put your bed in the closet, and he brought it out. And he did a lot of stuff like that because that new missionary ended up being in the same ward as me later on in life. And I was able to kind of talk with him about it. And he's like, yeah, man. And he didn't view, like, he didn't have an endearing relationship with his trainer because of that kind of way that he was being viewed as, oh, like, he's my new missionary, he's my trainee,
or my pet, or my robot that I got to train, or totally.
Yeah. And it's such a powerful life lesson in any relationship you're going to have, is to the IU.
Yeah. And just, I think as we're talking about it, like such a powerful leadership skill to think of it that way. Like if you're in any sort of a leadership, to look at it that way as well.
Yeah. Read the book, Leadership and Self-Deception. I think that's where I got the concept originally, from the I-it and IU. I think he talks about it in that book.
I love that. So good. Can you just talk, I know you've touched on it a little bit, like this idea of how to not make what other people mean anything about us. We've kind of talked about that a little bit, but do you have some like in the trenches tools for how we do this in the moment? Like not make it mean something.
So I get to ask this question a lot. How do we do this in the moment? Because it's very hard to do it in the moment. And I love to bring up basketball. Now, I am not a sports player, but I know enough about basketball to know that the easiest shot in the game is a layup, right? You just go up and just put the ball right in, easiest thing. But before every single game, every basketball team will line up and do layups, and they practice layups. And it's like a round robin thing. I've seen them do it. And it's like, oh, it's just warm ups or whatever. And allegedly a coach was asked, why do you do this? Like, why not spend time on more advanced skills? And he goes something along the lines of, well, we don't want to mess up or miss the easiest shot in the game. So we're making it muscle memory outside of the moment. So it can become muscle memory in the moment. So I get asked that all the time. Well, how do you do it? And I go, you got to do your thought work. You have to take time when you're not in the moment and emotions are all high or whatever, and take time to really build up practice, because your brain is used to going certain paths and used to firing certain synapses and thoughts. So to combat that, especially in the moment when you just tend to believe what other people are saying about you, take time at the beginning of every day, at the end of every day, 5 minutes, right, to come up with some powerful self-identity statements. Some people call them affirmations, self-beliefs, whatever. I like to call them self-identity statements, things that you believe about yourself that you want to be part of your identity, right? Like, I am freaking awesome. Like that's one of the things I go to often. I'm freaking awesome.
You are awesome, Joey.
Thank you very much. Right. And so I love thinking that I'm freaking awesome. And the more I tell myself that, and sometimes writing it down on a Post-it note, putting it on your phone thing. I know some people are like, oh, it's so weird. Like writing down, I'm nice and gosh darn it, people like me. Right. Like it's been made fun of and on SNL skits or whatnot. But it totally works, because if you don't do that, your brain is going to be telling you other thoughts. And if you're not in control of what your brain is telling you, then you're going to end up being in the moment and being like, oh, this thought work stuff doesn't work. They're making fun of me and I still feel miserable. And it's like, it only works if you work it. Right.
Yeah. And I think it's useful to note as well that our brain just wants to default to negativity. It's just going to take whatever information it's getting and accept it as truth. One of the most powerful things I teach my clients right in the first session is you don't have to believe what your brain tells you.
Yeah. It's such a novel thought. When I first heard that, I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. And likewise, we don't even have to believe what other people tell us either. We can filter that and be like, oh, is that a thought I like? How does that thought make me feel? Totally. So do you have any other tips? Like, these missionaries are out there, they're feeling like, they have this difficult companion that's kind of on them all the time. Do you have any other in the moment tips or tools for them?
Definitely. So for me, something I love doing is what I call your name the blank exercise, right? And it's discovering your hero title. Oftentimes we view ourselves as not the center of our story, right? Especially when we feel like somebody else is bullying us or getting authority over us. We go, oh man, I'm a sidekick and this is so annoying and there's nothing I can do about this, right? So then we start acting like the sidekick in our life. But really, we're the hero in our life. Like, that's our job to take on that role, especially mentally, to view ourselves as the hero. We get to change the way we feel about ourselves, and that will change the actions that we take.
Right.
So the your name the blank exercise is to come up with your hero title. There's going to be something like Joey the Creator. That is my hero title. That's who I love to be. That's who I strive to be. That's me at my best, is Joey the Creator. If I run into a problem with somebody, a missionary companion or something, I get to ask myself, what would Joey the Creator do in this moment? If somebody is making fun of me or, hazing me or whatever, I go, what would Joey the Creator do in this moment? I would create a way around this. I would find a way to make this fun. I would find a way to connect with person. I'm going to create connection, because that's just what Joey the Creator does. How could I do that? That's very in line with who I want to be. But my sidekick is like Joey the Lazy, right? I mean, I use that a lot for my business. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's uncomfortable. So that's me being lazy.
Right.
I don't want to, I don't want to do the work connecting with this person who I think is a bully, or do the work to stop thinking of them as a bully, because that's going to be hard and difficult and uncomfortable. That sounds to me more like Joey the Lazy. And I'm like, well, that's not who I want to be. I'm Joey the Creator. And so if somebody's saying something to me that is, and I start feeling less than, I can stop and go, well, no, now who am I? I know who I am. I'm Joey the Creator, or whatever your title is. And how would that person respond? How would that person think in this moment? And I do this exercise a lot with my clients, high school and college students. I've had a lot of great names, right? Ryan the Great, or Olivia the Confident, or Jesse the Adventurer, right? Things like that. You get to pick whatever you want it to be for that second part, but have it be an adjective or something that inspires you. Because when somebody's attacking us or we're feeling attacked, it's very uninspiring. We feel very opposite of inspired.
Right.
But if you can check in with your hero title and be inspired, now you can inspire yourself. And other people's actions and words don't have to bring you down, because you are the source of your inspiration and confidence and motivation. Nobody else is.
Yeah, I love that so much for a couple reasons. Number one is that when we kind of put that into our brain, right, our brain will go to work, even in other situations, figuring out how that is true, making that true in our lives. If we think we're a creator, if we think we're confident, our brains will look for that evidence and prove it true in our result.
Yep.
I love that. And then also, like if we have two choices in our story of the mission, do we want to be the victim or do we want to be the hero?
Yep.
And then just thinking about what would the hero do? And that's the other thing I want to talk about is like where you talk about on the podcast, on your podcast, about the most effective ways to handle bullying. We've already talked about like strengthening, like the person is way more effective than these other tools, which we still want to keep doing. But what do you recommend about just talking to people about the bullying if it's happening?
Yeah, Penn State did a study where they found out that the least effective way to stop a bully is to tell the bully to stop, right? So try to get the bully to change.
Yeah.
And then the most effective way to get change in bullying, and it was still only 33%, right, effective at making things better, was to either tell an adult at school, and just because this was done at school. So for missionaries, it would be to tell either leadership or mission president or somebody, or to talk to an adult at home. And I think the reason why that's more effective isn't because whoever's in leadership is going to go and tell them, hey, look, you need to change, right? That's not why it makes it the most effective, in my opinion. For me, is that when somebody at the middle school came up to me and said, I'm being bullied, I didn't even care who was bullying them. I knew talking to them wasn't going to do too much, possibly. Once I know that somebody's feeling bullied, I could talk to them and go, oh, what's going on? Well, do you believe that? And now you have a good positive sounding board to bounce these thoughts that you're having off of.
Right. Okay.
I'm feeling bullying. They're saying this about me. Oh, well, do you believe that? I don't believe that about you. I think you're awesome. No, I'm not awesome. Right? No, you are. And now you have a team of people who are helping you believe your positive self-identity statements. Especially if you're in a place where you just believe that you're just less than other people.
Okay. Which brings me to another question. One of the last few questions I have for you is, what advice do we have for these missionary moms and these missionary dads who get on these phone calls every week and their son or daughter is just distraught and upset and saying that their companion is bullying them? What do we tell these people?
So there's two ways to approach it, and do it in this order. In my opinion, do it in this order. First is to validate, right? Like the first thing I want to do is like, oh, come on, right? You know, you're great. But here's the thing is that our brains reject thoughts we don't believe, right? We treat them as viruses and we just want to push them out. So if your son or daughter is calling you and saying, oh, man, my companion's so difficult, they're saying this about me and this and that, they're believing it, right? So being like, oh man, that's got to be tough, right? Give them that validation that, yeah, that's tough, because you are mom for the most, right? You're mom still. And then once you've done that, they feel like they've been heard. Because I know I've been in situations where I've seen parents do this, or other teachers or leaders, where they're like, oh no, it's okay, you're fine. And the team's like, okay, they didn't hear me at all.
Right.
And then they're less likely to want to listen to you. So do the validation part, be there, love them, support them. And then when you feel that they're ready, or when you're ready, you can be like, well, what do you think you can do about this? And then just start asking questions to support them. I love just asking questions. We love to tell them, but honey, you're great.
Right. I know. We just want to shake it into them.
Yeah. Like, believe it.
I know.
What's wrong with you? Why don't you believe you're great?
Right.
But if you can get them to be like, well, I am pretty great, that's so much more powerful than you just telling them that they're great. Because you're like, well, you're mom, you have to tell me that. I know people who say, oh, you're my teacher, you have to tell me that. Or it's like, well, I don't, but I do, because it's true. So ask them questions like, okay, well, do you believe that about you? Right? Like, well, so what are they saying? Okay, well, how does that make you feel? What do you think when they say that? Oh, do you believe that about you? Oh, a little bit. Yeah. Well, do you think some of that's probably true? Okay. How's that helping you in your life, believing that? Oh, probably not, huh? Okay. Yeah, feeling that way. How would you like to feel? Oh, okay, cool. Well, how could you feel that way without changing them? You know, because I would love to go down there to your mission field and change the other person, right? It would be great, you know, and that's, moms try to do that sometimes, but it's like, since let's just assume they're never going to change. How could your companion never change and you still feel the way you want to feel when they say these things? Like, how is that possible? And they're going to say the three most common words every young adult and teen will say in any coaching session is, I don't know.
Right. Of course.
Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
And go, yeah, but what if you did know? Right. Like if there was a way, how would you do it? And then they're going to start coming up with things, right? Because you've given them permission. You've accepted them for how they've been feeling. You've validated that. And then you kind of put it on the coach hat and being like, yeah, what do you want? First off, figure out what they want. We like to tell them, like, we assume we know what they want. They want to feel better, right? You're amazing.
Yeah.
But maybe they don't want to feel better. Maybe they're like, I've been wanting to get transferred and I've been wanting to talk about to my mission president about this. Oh, well, how could you do that? Why haven't you? Well, I feel very, very victimized. And so I don't want to complain. Hold on a second. Like, if you want to do it, why don't you? How could you do? And so you coach them or ask them questions towards their desire. Don't assume you know what their desire is. You're probably right. They probably want to feel better or, you know, want to change, but have them come up with it first and then coach them onto a solution.
One of my favorite questions along the same like questions that you're talking about also is like, I wonder what's going on for them. This kind of humanizes again, instead of like the bully, like, you know, it kind of mindset is like, they're behaving that way. I wonder what's going on for them. Yeah. That's one of my favorite questions.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's Covey calls it seeking to understand rather than to be understood. Right. I wonder what's going on for them. And we may never know what's going on for them, but your story about what's going on for them is probably something like they're jerks, they're mean, they're rude, you know, which is also just a story.
Right.
And you thinking that isn't going to help you get along with them or feel better around them. So rewriting that story and being like, what is going on? Oh, I bet they feel insecure, or maybe they feel insufficient, or maybe they just don't get it, you know, and that's okay, you know, or maybe like seeking to understand them is super powerful. That's a good one.
I feel like that always, for me at least, and for my clients, brings like some curiosity and compassion. Just like, so strange. That's not how I would do it. I wonder what's going on for them, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Good. Okay. What final advice would you have for these our wonderful missionaries who are out like transforming their lives and transforming other people's lives, who really are out there just doing the best that they can and run into a situation like this? What final advice would you have for them?
I want to connect everything that we've talked about and everything that Jenny talks about in her podcast, but especially what we talked about today. I want to connect it to Christ. This, I feel, is the how we become more Christ-like. This kind of thought work, right, that we do. Often we say, love one another, right? Love your enemies, pray for them who despitefully use you and persecute you. And then we're looking at the scriptures and we're like, yeah, but how? How do I do that? How do I love my companion, right? Or I remember the story of missionary companion who would like shine his companion's shoes every morning because it helped him love him. And you're like, oh, great, cool. I'm going to shine my companion's shoes. And then you go to shine his shoes and he has suede shoes. You're like, okay, well, I can't do that. Now what, right? So it's like, how do I do this? This is the root of all of it. This is the root of how you love somebody who we might deem as really hard to love or as really difficult. I had a companion that I only had for a week because we were put together and my mission president told me, he said, I want to put you with him because I'm hoping you can reignite his fire. And I was 3 months out and he was over a year. And we get to our apartment and he immediately takes off his tie and goes, I'm the most burnt missionary there ever was. which means, and our mission was, I don't do things, right?
Yeah.
Lazy missionary. It's burnt, right?
Burned out. Yeah.
Burned out, right? And he had a girlfriend, one of the wards, like that he would sneak away and go hang out with. He went, and one time I woke up and 2 other missionaries were hanging out, and they all had sleepover with their shirts off, and the henna tattoos up and down their arms. And I'm like, what is going
What's
on?
happening?
What is happening here, right? But even in that situation, I was like, I am someone who loves my companions. And I was able to have a frank conversation with him. I was able to be like, hey, look, like, what do you want? Like, I would like to do this. No, we're not going out. We're not going tracking. We're not doing that. Well, but I was able to talk with him, and he never changed. Like, spoiler alert, he never changed. We were only together for a week, because once it was found out that he had a girlfriend, then the mission president moved him again to the Great White North. It was a popular thing to do in Canada,
okay,
right? Away from all the things. And so he got transferred out, and it was a different thing that happened. And then I was put with a missionary who was about to go home, who was a super stalwart missionary, who was overly stalwart, as in, like, he would beat himself up if we weren't knocking on doors all the time.
Sure.
Super, like, and he said, and it was the same principle. I'm going to love him. Christ loves him. Christ loves the other missionary, right? I'm going to love him. And loving people doesn't mean they're going to change. It doesn't mean that it's going to change their results, but it's definitely going to change your results of enjoying a lot more your time with them.
Totally. And what I will add to that is, which we've touched on already quite a bit, but I love the idea of loving everyone in the story. So we're going to love them, and we're going to love us enough to stand up for ourselves, and to say something, or to reach out, or to ask for help when we need that help. I fully believe that Jesus Christ loved himself too. Otherwise, he couldn't have done what he did. So I love the idea of, let's love everyone in the story, make them all human, and love them just the way they are, and us too, with all of our shortcomings. So powerful.
Yeah. And if you can't do that, remember, listen to this podcast, listen to Jenny's podcast. It's a story you have about them or you that needs to change to create love.
Yes. I love it. So good. Okay. Thank you so much, Joey, for meeting with me. And I just know this podcast is going to help so many people. Will you tell us a little bit about your program and where people can find you? Joey's awesome. So let us tell us how we can find you.
Definitely. Okay. So you can find me on my podcast, Secrets for an Awesome Life. It's for teens and young adults. So I have a lot of fun on there. Season 3 is just about to start. So super fun there. You can follow me on Instagram at Firmly Founded Coaching. On Instagram, I like to do funny reels. I think they're funny. So you can follow me there. And then we do have a program. If you go to firmlyfounded.com/college, you can find our college aged program. And we call it college aged, but it's for, you don't have to be in college. It's people 18 to 26, essentially. And we have a coaching program. It's monthly. Everybody in it gets one private coaching session a month. We have multiple group calls that we do. There's video courses on things like this, becoming bully proof, or get stuff done, have more fun, ending procrastination, and all the other stuff. And we're always creating them more and more, but it's super fun. It's me and a bunch of other LDS life coaches who coach in there, and we have a great fun time. So you can go over there to check it out and learn more.
So much fun. Everything I see you guys do, I'm like, that looks so fun.
If it's not fun, it's not really worth it.
Not worth it if it's not fun. Well, thanks again, Joey. And we will just talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today. Listen, if you are learning a lot from this podcast and you like what you're hearing, you will absolutely love hopping on a free strategy call with me. That's where you and I meet up one-on-one and talk specifically about what is going on for you. I love teaching young adults the mental and emotional tools that they need to overcome worry and anxiety, serve the successful missions they've always dreamed of, and navigate their post-mission experience with confidence. So go to jennydildine.com and click on the Work With Me link. I would love to meet you. and I would love to get you some helpful tools and strategies to help you fully embrace whatever is next for you. And in the meantime, no matter which part of the mission experience you are involved in, just know that Jenny, the LDS Mission Coach, is thinking about you every single day.